All right. Today, we're going to dive into a really structured program for hitting a new level of personal excellence. It's called the Personal Transformation Program, or PTP for short. And honestly, it's a fascinating framework for anyone who's serious about making real, lasting changes in their life. Let's start with a question. Have you ever felt like your personal energy is just constantly draining away? I mean, really think about it. Where does all your focus and your mental energy go on a typical day? Do you ever get to the end of the week and just feel completely scattered, like you've been pulled in a million different directions? Or maybe you just feel stuck. It's a super common feeling, and it's the exact problem this program was built to tackle. You see, the whole program is built on this one core idea. Our minds need a ton of energy to work well, and that energy gets absolutely zapped by internal conflict and when the different parts of our lives are out of sync. When things are out of balance, it's like having a slow leak in a tire. It creates this constant, low-level drain on all your resources. So the solution here isn't about trying to magically find more energy out of thin air. Not at all. Instead, it's a step-by-step system for figuring out exactly where your energy is leaking out, plugging those leaks, and then taking all that reclaimed energy and pointing it toward one central purpose. And all of this leads to the ultimate goal, which is self-mastery. But look at how practical this definition is. This isn't some vague, mystical concept. Self-mastery is defined here as a real skill, the ability to consistently follow through on your own decisions. It's that simple and that powerful. It's the muscle you're trying to build. Okay, so how does it all work? Well, the whole system is built on two foundational pillars. A good way to think about it is this. The 12-dimension framework is like the detailed, high-resolution map of your life. It shows you exactly where you are right now. And the quantum transformation principles? Those are the tools you use to actually navigate that map and make changes. So let's dig into that first pillar. Because look, before you can fix any imbalances, you have to be able to see them with total clarity. This is where the life audit comes in. It's all about getting a brutally honest, objective snapshot of where you really are. So, this framework breaks your life down into 12 different dimensions. Now, the key thing to get here is that these aren't just 12 separate boxes. They're completely interconnected. Your physical health absolutely impacts your career. Your finances affect your relationships. You get the idea. You can't just fix one area in a vacuum and expect it to last. And here they are. As you can see, it is a truly holistic view of your life. It covers everything from the super practical stuff, career, finances, all the way to the more internal things, like your spiritual life or personal development. They've really made sure that no stone is left unturned. Okay, so what do you actually do with this list? Well, every single week you do a self-assessment. For each of these 12 areas, you give yourself a score from 0 to 10. 0 is, things are at their worst, and 10 is that absolute peak optimal state. And yeah, this requires you to be really honest with yourself without getting defensive. Now, to make this feel a little more real, let's just zoom in on one of these. How in the world do you come up with a single number for something as big and complex as your career? Well, it's not just a random guess. There's actually a method to it. For each of the 12 dimensions, you're actually rating yourself on 3 specific, smaller criteria. So for career, for example, you'd separately score your job satisfaction, then your progress toward your work goals, and then your work-life balance. And as the program developer, Sachin Karnik, explains, you just average those 3 scores together and boom, that's your number for the week. This simple little process turns a vague feeling about your career into a hard, trackable number. You do this for all 12 dimensions every week, and you end up with this incredible, dynamic dashboard of your life. So getting that clear picture is a massive first step. But we all know that just having insight, just knowing the numbers, doesn't actually change anything. So now we've got to move to that second pillar, which is all about turning that data into real-world action. This is where the work really begins. The program runs for 13 weeks, and each week is anchored by a specific quantum transformation principle, or QTP. Now, they use the word quantum here to mean a small, fundamental shift in your thinking that can have a huge ripple effect. You can think of these principles like weekly software updates for your brain. They're tools to help you recalibrate your internal operating system. For instance, the principle for week 2 is tolerance. The idea is you'd actually write this definition down, put it on a card, and read it every day. You're consciously priming your mind with this quality. By focusing on tolerance, you're probably going to spend a lot less mental energy judging other people or fighting against different views.
which reduces that internal friction and directly saves you that precious energy we talked about.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important idea in the entire program. It draws a really clear line in the sands between insight and action. Insight alone is just knowing your finances score is a 4. Scheduled action, on the other hand, is the master key that actually makes things change. Insight is the what, but scheduled action is the how.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The argument here is that the master key to turning your intentions into reality is your calendar. It's that simple. You want to raise your physical health score? Don't just tell yourself you'll try to exercise more. No, schedule the exact day and time for your workout. That simple act of putting it on the calendar transforms a vague wish into a real commitment.
And this creates this amazing feedback loop. You assess your 12 dimensions to see where you are, you use the weekly principle to get your mindset right, then you schedule concrete actions to improve your scores. And every single time you follow through on one of the scheduled actions, no matter how small it is, you are actively building that muscle of self-mastery. So that brings us to the end of this overview. It's a pretty powerful system, right? And it leaves us with a really compelling question to think about. If all that energy that you currently spend on internal conflict, on imbalance, on just being indecisive, if all of that was suddenly free and available to you, what would you do with it? What would you build?